Hi, this is your instructor, Janet Paul, and I'm going to go over some of the highlights of the instructions for the informational interview project, which is one of the two projects that you may choose from to do for this course this semester. Now, the informational interview project is a great way to learn about a type of work that you might be interested in going into. And it can help you build self-confidence in meeting new people. It can make contacts for you. It's a great way to make a new connection and to expand your network. There's just a lot of benefits to doing an informational interview. It's low stress. It's not like a job interview. It's just a very low-key, informative experience. And there are actually two parts to this project. One part is the written document. Now, so there will be a paper that you will complete as part of this project. And since this is a semester project, I would like your actual document presentation to reflect that with some professionalism. So I require that you make a cover page and that you use a clear report cover. The other thing that I require is that the paper be at least 4 pages long. And the reason for this is because there really isn't, I don't believe, any way that you can include all the points that we're looking for with less than 4 pages. I've had many folks do more than 4 pages, and really what drives the length of your paper is what you need to answer the questions we're looking for and answer and talk about the areas that we're looking for you to find out about. So that means 4 pages when it's formatted properly, double spaced, etc. Now, the second part of this project is an oral presentation, a short presentation to share with the class what you found out. And this would require the components that we're going to go over, the bulleted components further down the page, and we'll go over those in a moment. And along with that oral presentation, you'll need to have a visual aid. Very often students use a simple PowerPoint as a visual aid. That's really a good type of visual aid to use. And, sometimes people will incorporate a website, a website of a company into it if the person works for a corporation or whatever. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the semester, but some kind of visual aid. And the simplest is for the informational interview project is usually a simple PowerPoint. Okay, so the total project is worth 200 points. And 100 of those points are the written document, and 100 points are the presentation. Now, I have to tell you, I want to make a point of this. Don't get hung up about the presentation part of this. I'm not going to be grading you on your wonderful public speaking skills. This isn't a public speaking course per se. What I'm really looking for is that you speak loud enough and articulately enough so that we understand you. And I also want to mention that we'll be doing some things this semester that'll help you feel more comfortable presenting in front of the class, your fellow students. So don't let that scare you. Don't get tense about that. That's not going to be as big a deal as you might think it is. Okay, so those are the two parts to this project. And these are some of the things that I would expect you to include in both the written paper and the presentation. You want to include your interviewee's name, their position, and several paragraphs describing the job, what it involves, and if they work in an organization, where it's located, the overall structure of the organization. Some background about the person is important, their education, how they got into this line of work. Did they just fall into it? What were their previous jobs leading up to it? Some things that contributed to them getting this position or being led into this type of work, that kind of thing, background. Now, the third bullet point is organizational culture. And organizational culture is a lot more than just the dress code. So I would expect you to include things like it has a lot to do with the environment. It has a lot to do with how people communicate with each other in this workplace. So you'd want to include things like, whether maybe this is shift work, maybe this is a branch and the headquarters is somewhere else, or maybe this is the headquarters. Do people video conference? Do they have meetings regularly? Do they, all that about the culture of the organization. And actually, you might try, I can talk to you about that if you want to, a little more one-on-one, or you might try even Googling organizational culture and you'd probably get some different feel for what it would include. The last bullet point on this page is what's a typical day like? You definitely want to find out what a typical day for this person is like. Okay. Um, Salary range. Now, I don't necessarily expect you to ask your interviewee what they make. Now, some people will offer that, or some people will offer, if they work for a big company, many times there's a set starting rate. They might say, well, a systems analyst at this company will start at 36,000 a year and go up to 58, that kind of thing. So if they offer it, that's fine. But you can also find a lot of resources online. U.S. Department of Labor is a good one. A lot of online resources for what different types of work pay. How about the satisfying parts of the job for this particular person? How about the stressful parts of the work? Those are important to know. And very importantly, can you picture yourself in this type of job? Now, you might want to formulate the answer to this question after you're home and you're done with the interview and really think about what you've heard and seen. And that's important for you to include. What did you learn from this interview? And really, that last part, I'm looking for your overall ability to communicate what you think about this potential career as a fit for you. Okay. Let's see, going down to visual aids, we did talk a little bit about that. So a simple PowerPoint, you can incorporate photographs. Pictures are always make the visual aid more interesting. Overall, a visual aid in a presentation is really to enhance what you're saying. So anything that enhances and builds on and reinforces what you're telling us will be helpful to people in understanding the information. I've included some ideas for you. Very big requirement of this project, and I've underlined it here. This person you interview needs to be someone with whom you have had little or no previous contact. So, I find students are sometimes tempted, oh, my uncle's an insurance agent. I think I'll just interview my uncle. Well, that's really defeating the purpose of this interview. This interview is to contribute to your growth. And what I want you to do is to expand your connections, expand your network a little bit. So rather than interviewing your uncle, I'd like you to ask your uncle if he knows someone in the same work as himself that you could meet and interview. You'll get a different take on the situation, different take on the job. It'll just be of more benefit to you. And you'll grow your contacts, which is really a nice side benefit for many people, has been in the past for this project. I've given you some tips on how to set up the informational interview. I'll let you go over that and study that. Of course, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, talk to me, set up an appointment. We can talk face to face. Just let me know if that's what you'd like. Now, this interview, you shouldn't have to take more than half an hour, I'd say, of your interviewee's time. I recommend to have your questions written up ahead of time, and at least the ones most important to ask. Sometimes you end up going off into other areas, which is fine, but you definitely want to include all of the bulleted points that we've gone over further up here that must be included. The person's full name, position, everything that's there, those bullet points. Let's see. Okay, so I will let you read that on your own at your own leisure. I've talked a little bit about conducting the interview and writing down questions. Now, here's something that you might want to think about. Rather than feverishly writing down the answers that they're giving you to all of your questions, you might want to record the interview. If you do, please, you need to ask them at the beginning. 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, that's fine. But just as a courtesy, you want to create a good impression, right? So you want to ask them, is it okay if I record our interview? Okay. Another really important point I want to make. I really prefer that you go to the place of work to do this interview. This is important to really get a sense of what it's really like to be in the environment where they work. It's going to be a bigger benefit to you to actually be in the place. And you know, it may, even if it's in the break room on their break, you know, it's still going to benefit you more than a phone interview. So let's talk about that. If that's an issue for you, let's talk about it. But you're going to benefit more if you can be at the place where they work. Okay, now I will mention after an interview, sending a thank you note, writing a short email directly to the person immediately following the interview the same day is perfect. I think the current thinking on that is to do the email and then follow up possibly with a card through the mail, thank you card through the mail. But at the very least, send that email. Okay. Now, when is this project due? Whether you choose this project or the Family Culture Project, they are both due towards the end of the semester. And you'll see on the semester calendar that the last few class periods will be presenting these. And the written part will be due on the day you do your presentation. Now, you'll see that I've given you quite a few possible questions here. I certainly don't expect you to ask all of them. These are just ideas. These are some ideas to get you started about writing your own questions. You definitely, of course, want to include what's a typical day like and what are the duties, responsibilities of this job. Those are on the list to definitely include, but there's some other ones, you know, so it's up to you what you want to choose. And one great one is, what do you wish you had known when you started that you've learned since you've been on this job? That might be a good one to include. Okay, so I think that gets you started, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.